Good morning. I'm Carla Reid, General Manager and CEO of your neighborhood water utility, WSSC Water. And I want to welcome everybody to the Potomac Water Filtration Plant. WSSC Water is one of the largest water and wastewater utilities in the nation, and this plant is our largest water filtration plant. Built in 1961, the Potomac plant is vital to our clean water mission, producing between 100 and 120 million gallons of water, the best drinking water for the majority of our 1.8 million customers from northern Montgomery County all the way to southern Prince George's County. We are standing right above what's known as the intake. And this is where Potomac River enters our plant and begins a rigorous state-of-the-art treatment process to become safe, clean drinking water. But that treatment process is complicated during the winter as chloride levels rise and they increase due to the salt in the snow melt that runs off. Which is why we are all here today to discuss how to protect our waterways and our water supplies by being salt wise. To start us off, I have the privilege of introducing Adriana Hochberg, Acting Director for Montgomery County Department of the Environment. Adriana?
Thank you so much, General Manager Reid. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here on this breezy morning. I want to thank the WSSC Water team for a great partnership in protecting the beautiful Potomac River behind us and all the creeks and streams that feed into this body of water. DEP's mission is to protect and preserve our shared environment, but we cannot do it alone. We need help from each of you, from each of our neighbors, to clean up the environment. From using reusable bags to picking up litter to using less salt during the winter months, all of these small actions add up. Leading the charge for our county's environmental efforts is County Executive Marc Elrich. Marc is a committed climate change and environmental leader, and we're so happy he's here with us today to demonstrate why public involvement is so important for our efforts.
Thank you. It's great to be out here today. No snow till tomorrow. Well-timed event. So I want to thank everyone for coming and talking to us today. I want to thank WSSC Water for hosting us in this very beautiful spot here. And I finally got to see the infamous intake that gets silted up by the water that gets dumped in by the salt. I mean, the dirty water that gets dumped in from Watts Branch up north of here, which is why they've got another major project to undertake. I also want to thank my colleagues from DEP and DOT and to our friends who have taken it upon themselves to monitor our creeks and streams. We have lots of civilian people who pay attention to this and are interested in the health of water in Montgomery County. And together we are making a difference in protecting our environment. Salt is a growing problem from our streams, and you can see the charts over here. It's an enormous amount. The increase in salt looks like it's basically tripled almost from 1990 in the Potomac and gone up pretty significantly in the Patuxent as well. All of this impacts the treatment plant, it impacts the water you drink, and we need everybody working together to make sure that salt, as little salt as possible, winds up in the streams, which is why we're talking about salt-wise today. County departments and agencies are working together to develop policies and processes to minimize salt use. I was out at the demonstration in Montgomery County probably 2 years ago before COVID to look at what they were doing to minimize the use of salt. But residents and businesses can do their part. Most of us know that when we get salt in our driveways or in our sidewalks in our neighborhoods, we're out there with bags of salt and shaking the salt over the surface. Unfortunately, that salt travels and it doesn't stay there. And it winds up in our streams and it harms aquatic life. And even low even low concentrations of salt can produce harmful effects in freshwater ecosystems. And salt on sidewalks and driveways washes into storm drains and goes right into our creeks and streams and rivers like the Potomac right here behind us. So salt can also corrode concrete and masonry. It harms pets and damages surrounding plants and lawns and adversely impacts the water supply. And I've seen lots of sidewalks that show signs of salt damage. It's a real thing, and you wind up paying for it probably far more than you pay for using the salt that you use every year. So there are lots of reasons to be more careful with salt. As the winter season approaches, we're here today to remind people that we need to establish a balance between public safety and environmental protection. The tips that residents can follow include the three big things that are up here, which is shovel ice and snow early and often. The earlier you shovel it, the less you're going to be relying on salt to get the snow and ice out of there. And you only need one 12-ounce cup of salt to cover, 10 sidewalk squares or to do a 20-foot driveway. You only need this much. I've seen people out there shaking bags over their driveway. You don't need that much. This will do. And after storm events, you can actually sweep up the excess salt. And that's important because if it's there after the storm event and you sweep it up, it's not going to be washed away by the next rain, which will carry it into not only into your yards, but down the street, into the sewer, and into one of our streams in Montgomery County. So we're asking people to work with us on this. We can all do this together, and we can all be salt-wise. And, the more pollutants that wind up in the water, the more expensive it is to treat the water. And so it has long-term impacts on the county and on WSSC, what it does to the pipes, but also what it does to the treatment process. So it's in all of our interests to work together on this. It'll save us all money in the long run. Most importantly, it'll leave us with a cleaner environment and a cleaner river. So thank you very much, Carla.
Thank you.
We're a county that is fortunate to have a wealth of passionate and committed residents who not only take environmentally friendly actions at home and in their daily lives, they also volunteer their time and help in so many ways. Karl Van Neste is the Vice President of the Muddy Branch Alliance and is part of a community-based monitoring group which inspects water quality in parts of our county. Thank you for being here today, Karl.
Thank you very much for having me. Hi, my name is Karl Van Neste. I live in Gaithersburg, and I'm on the board at the Muddy Branch Alliance. I'm here to talk about salt. Salt's a problem. It's a problem because it's cheap, and it's somewhat effective in breaking up our ice on our roads. It's bad because it kills vegetation and stream life. It corrodes our roads, our bridges, and our pipes. You can think Flint, Michigan. And we drink the water that goes down the Muddy Branch stream. It goes down the Muddy Branch to the Potomac. It gets cleaned here, but the salt stays in the water, and so we end up drinking salty water in the wintertime. And you hear about that. WSC gets lots of complaints, and you hear about it on Neste. So the Muddy Branch Alliance has been monitoring the streams for about since 2019. And we record the results with the Isaac Walton League. We work very closely with them. And during the pandemic, we've noticed at multiple sites that the chloride levels are poor, and sometimes for over a quarter of the year. They get better as they approach. The water gets diluted a little bit more as it approaches the Potomac River. But we've seen fish kills. Vegetation issues. So there are lots of things that we can do to help resolve the problem. And it's not just one thing. The first thing we need to do is we need to talk about the overuse of salt and educate the community. And we're doing a lot of that right now. We need to fully understand our salt usage so that we can manage it. How much salt are we buying? How much salt are we distributing? We need to know that at the city, the county, and the state level. We need to be able to talk about those things because when you ask, sometimes it's difficult to get an answer to those questions. Then we need to try to limit the amount of salt that we're putting down. We've gone from in the 1980s to putting down very little to putting down lots of salt, and we need to kind of come down from that peak. We need to continue to put down salt, when it snows on major roads, on emergency routes, and dangerous intersections to be safe. But cul-de-sacs, dead ends, we don't need curb to curb, salting. Lots of times brine and plowing is sufficient. We need to clean up after we put down salt. And it's not just citizens, but the city, the state, and the county all need to clean up 2 days after we put down salt. We need to pick it back up. We need to create a budget for how much salt we can put down each year. How much salt is safe to put down, each year. We also need to work with private organizations to do more to limit the amount of salt that they put down. Lots of times they're afraid of slip and fall liability. Well, if they act appropriately, we ought to be able to shield them from slip and fall liability. And let's see. And so with private organizations, we can also, if the slip and fall liability is too much, provide them with a badge that they can use so that they can say, well, we're trained in how to put down salt. So, in any case, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate your time. I appreciate the good work that WSSC is doing and that the county is doing also. Thank you very much.
Carla, we appreciate your help in getting the messages to the public about the impacts that you see from oversalting.
Well, thank you, Adriana. And I would love to applaud our County Executive Elrich for your leadership. We appreciate the role that you're taking on this salt issue and encouraging all of us to be salt wise. I also like to applaud Montgomery County staff for your work and leadership role. We all know that salt is effective in melting ice. There's no doubt about it. And we also know what happens on the land also happens in our waterways. And so what we might not know is that once the salt enters our drinking water sources, the Potomac and the Patuxent rivers, we cannot remove it during the filtration process. And so without hundreds of millions of dollars in upgrades, we just cannot treat that salt. So you look, the county executive pointed out these charts. They show that the salt levels in the Potomac River drinking water reservoir has increased 300% in the past 31 years, and here at the Potomac plant, the salt levels have increased 231% since 1990. So let me just stress though one thing: our water is safe. And while it's not a health issue for most customers, increased salt levels in water can be a health concern for those who have sodium restrictive diets. And so additionally, Karl said that salt is corrosive, and we see it slowly wearing away at our water mains, and that leads to more breaks, and it also leads to discolored water complaints. And so we have this weather report coming up tomorrow, the threat of snow in parts of our service area. And so this is a perfect time to remind everyone to be salt wise. We need to take action now, and we got to get these levels down. So I urge everyone to take these salt guidelines to heart. Really, it's just as easy as 1, 2, 3, those 3 steps. And speaking of heart, we watch our salt levels in our diet to keep our hearts healthy. So we need to be salt wise to keep our environment and our drinking water supplies healthy as well. So with that, thank you everyone for being part of this Salt Wise event.
Good morning, and thank you to all of you for being here. I want to talk a little bit about why we're doing this. We maintain about 5,300 lane miles of road in the county. That sounds like a lot, but it's less than half of the overall amount of paved area that might be treated with salt in Montgomery County. Over the past 3 years, as part of our commitment to reduce the impact from our operations on the environment and to work to enhance our environment through the projects that we build and construct, we've implemented a number of programs to control the amount of salt we use in our operations and to clean up excess or spilled salt that occurs during winter operations. But the main reason I'm here is to encourage other people to be mindful of the amount of salt that they use. Our partners in the State Department of Transportation, our municipal partners, the cities of Rockville, Gaithersburg, Tacoma Park, and others that treat roads, the school system who treats school parking lots, school walking areas, and private landowners, some of whom control acres of parking lots, others who are worried about their own driveway and sidewalk, to be careful about the amount of salt they use, to use only the amount that's needed, to avoid spilling and to clean up and other things that you've heard today. I'm proud of our commitment to manage salt as part of our winter operations while we work to make sure that the roads and sidewalks are passable and usable during storms. And I want to invite Richard Dorsey, who's the chief of our highway operations, and make sure that we do what we need to do to manage salt, to talk more specifically about some of the things that we're doing within the Montgomery County Department of Transportation. Richard?
So good morning and thanks for being here. My name is Richard Dorsey. I'm the Chief of the Division of Highway Services in the Department of Transportation. And I just want to talk about our commitment to being salt wise. And some of our best practices are we're training our operators to be mindful and understand to put down the proper application for the conditions of the pavement. Definitely we need to make sure everyone's safe, and we also need to be mindful of the environment. We've also installed rubber blades on all of our plows. What that does is allow us to plow sooner. Traditionally, we were plowed at like 3 inches. With the rubber blades, it allows us to plow around 1.5 inches. That means we're using less salt to treat the conditions of the pavement. We also have a cleanup process. We're doing a lot of QA/QC during and after events, where we have our monitors out checking to make sure the operators are putting down the proper application. And if they aren't, we're addressing that with the operators. And if there's a condition out there that needs to be rectified, we're cleaning up those conditions. And I'd also lastly like to mention that if you see something, we're asking all the residents and the people in the community, if you're seeing these conditions and you think that they're excessive, contact us through 311 or our Montgomery County Department of Transportation website, and we'll respond to those conditions as soon as we possibly can. And thank you again, and we're being salt wise as we want to protect our residents and our environment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Putting down a little bit of extra salt doesn't seem like a big deal, but imagine that decision multiplied thousands of times over year after year. A little bit extra adds up to a great deal of pollution downstream from us. And we're all connected. We may be upstream from someone else, but we are downstream from others. This is our collective home. Let's be good stewards of it by applying salt responsibly. So let's review the 1, 2, 3 one last time. Number 1, shovel right away. That means shovel early and shovel often. Remove the snow before it even has a chance to become ice. Number 2, salt sensibly. Use the coffee cup rule. That means a 12-ounce coffee cup is all that you need to treat a typical 20-foot driveway or 10 sidewalk squares. And number 3, sweep up the excess salt. After winter weather, be sure to sweep up any leftover that you can reuse it or clean it up any spills. It can go a long way in keeping our water clean. And we've gotten some questions about those alternatives that are out in the marketplace. There are many organic, salt-free, pet-safe products on the market today. De-icers that contain calcium magnesium acetate, or CMA, are more eco-friendly. But remember that everything that we throw into the pavement, on the streets, onto our lawns, and eventually ends up into our storm drains, our streams, our creeks, and our rivers. So we need to protect them and be salt-wise.